Hey everybody, let's watch this clip from Boyz N The Hood. This is the billboard scene, and let me know if you think my comparisons and contrast towards dog culture are valid. So, for some context, watch the movie if you can. But we have our two younger characters and then our older, mature character, Furious. So, let's see what happens. Growing up in that hood, yeah, boy, 1984, okay, so these are our two younger guys. They don't know a time before the neighborhood was like this. But our older character, he does. So right away, that's a comparison to dog culture. Most dog culture critics remember a time when dogs lived outside in dog houses. They remember a time when you could walk around and not hear dog barking all the time. They remember a time when motels and apartments weren't full of barking dogs. And all the other negative externalities that come with dogs that have just increased over the last couple decades. Many people know a time when there was not all those problems.
Hey man, I don't know about all this fury.
Okay, and right off you can see there's kind of a little bit of conflict, a little bit of tension. There's peeling out in the background. People are kind of fronting, representing. And this is the same way when there's dogs. You know, if there were dogs in this fence and these two guys were walking their little dog, there'd be barking. One dog would be trying to dig over the fence. The guy over at this house, he'd be yelling, "Shut up, shut those dogs up." You know, so there's a lot of similarities here.
Walking around motherfucking Compton, man. Rick, it's the 90s. Can't afford to be afraid of our own people anymore, man.
Can't afford to be afraid of your own people anymore. That's right. However, people are afraid of dogs wherever they go. If they're not afraid of dogs, they're afraid of stepping in dog shit or hearing dogs bark.
Would you two knuckleheads come on? Why don't y'all take a look at that sign up there? See what it says?
Did you guys hear the cop car in the background? That's like constant dog barking in the background.
Cash for your home? You know what that is? What are y'all, Amos and Andy?
What are y'all, Amos and Andy? See, this is kind of my point again. This guy knows what's up because he's been around. These two guys, they're just thinking like, we're just supposed to live this life of slinging drugs and kicking each other's ass. That's just how we be living. So this guy, he's like, no, something else is going on. You need to look at this billboard and understand the outside forces affecting you.
You step in and he's fetches? I'm talking about the message, what it stands for. It's called gentrification. It's what happens when the property value of a certain area is brought down. Huh? You listening? Yeah. To bring the property value down. They can buy the land that'll...
Okay, now the gentrification part of this is not a perfect comparison to dog culture, but the gentrification that happened in these black neighborhoods and dog culture is very comparable. It's a lot of things that happened in the gentrification of these black neighborhoods is also going on right now with dog culture.
Lower price. Then they move all the people out, raise the property value, and sell it at a profit. Now what we need to do is we need to keep everything in our neighborhood, everything, black. Black owned with black money. Just
now, how about we keep everything in our neighborhoods human owned with human money instead of dog owned? Because everywhere we go, everything is owned by dogs. You go to a public park that you pay taxes to go to, you can't sit in the grass without touching a dog turd. And so that's another little comparison.
Like the Jews, the Italians, the Mexicans, and the Koreans do.
Ain't nobody from outside bringing down the property value. It's these folk shooting each other. And
okay, now see, they're going to blame the people that live there for all this conflict that's going on due to the influx of drugs and guns and alcohol. But where does all that stuff come from? These guys don't make it there in that neighborhood. They don't force each other to act like that. Outside forces are tricking them to get into this drugs, money, alcohol, prostitution. Everything that's going on in this neighborhood is coming from outside sources. And that's the same thing with dog culture. Everywhere you go, you see pictures, cartoons saying that dogs are the best thing ever. But then what happens? You get a dog, and then there's a fight or a bite. And then what do? They blame the owners. They always say that, oh, it's these bad dog owners, these bad dog owners. But outside forces are pushing us to own dogs. And that's exactly what happened in these black neighborhoods that they tried to gentrify.
selling that crack rock and shit.
Well, how you think the crack rock gets into the country? We don't own any planes. We don't own no ships. We are...
Right. How do you think dog culture gets into people's brains? How do you think these dogs get into these neighborhoods? People didn't make a conscious decision based on lots of research. They were just told that dogs are the best thing ever, and then they started collecting dogs. Then they fight amongst themselves. Then they argue. They have barking disputes, all because of an outside force.
Not the people who are flying and floating that shit in here. I know every time you turn on the TV, that's what you see. Black people selling the rock, pushing the rock.
Yeah, every time you see a dog bite where someone is killed, what do they say? They don't say, hey, the Humane Society needs to quit pushing these dogs out. They don't say, hey, we need to quit pushing dogs as a cure for everything. They blame the local people. The same thing happens with this.
Pushing the rock? Yeah, I know. But that wasn't a problem as long as it was here. It wasn't a problem until it was in Iowa and it showed up on Wall Street where there are hardly any black people. Now, if you want to talk about guns, why is it that there's a gun shop on almost every...
Okay, that's another comparison too. He's talking about how this culture with the drugs and guns is being blamed on black neighborhoods. But the drugs and gun culture even happened to rich people and politicians. People all over America started getting hooked to cocaine and having all kinds of marriage problems and financial problems. So with dog culture, it's the same thing too. They try to blame bad owners or people that aren't smart. But even rich people, even celebrities, like the owner of UFC had his daughter's ear ripped off. So this is kind of the same thing too. They're trying to say, oh, this is just a black person problem. And dog culture does the same thing too. Oh, it's just a bad dog owner problem. No, the problem is the presence of the dogs. Just like in this example, the problem is the presence of too much drugs, too much guns, too much alcohol.
Corner in this community.
Why?
Tell you why. For the same reason that there's a liquor store on almost every corner in the black community. Why? They want us to kill ourselves. You go out to Beverly Hills, you don't see that.
Yeah, why is there a liquor store? Why is there a gun store on every corner? Because they want these people to spend their money on stuff that causes constant conflict between them. If they go out there and fill their houses up with drugs and money and everything else, instead of actually putting effort into each other, buying property, teaching each other things, if they just spend all this time filling up their coffers with drugs, guns, and other stuff, then they're just going to be fighting themselves and they're never going to build up their community. And that's the same thing with dog culture. You can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on a dog in a lifetime, and then you end up with nothing at all. And that's the same thing that happens to these poor guys. They spend a lifetime just getting fancy cars and other stuff, but they don't have any friends or family to support them because they're constantly fighting each other.
That shit, but they want us to kill ourselves. Yeah, the best way you can destroy a people, you take away their ability to reproduce themselves. Yeah.
Okay, did you hear that? That's my main point of all this. I'm just going to replay that. This is such a great scene, you guys.
You can destroy a people, you take away their ability to reproduce themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, how can you reproduce when you're running around, you're in your home watching OnlyFans with 6 dogs petting on your dogs. You're posting up on Facebook how much you hate people but you love dogs. The dating game, you can't date anybody unless you love the 6 dogs that they already own. And more people just don't want to have solid relationships. They don't want to have children because dogs are better. Your ability to reproduce, your ability to have your own wealth has to be compromised when you're a dog owner. And the same things will happen to these guys. And this isn't just a movie. This reflects a lot of the realities that happened in these black neighborhoods. When I was in the Marine Corps, a couple of my black Marine Corps friends, we would go and drive through here. We were in 29 Palms, California, and yeah, these type of situations happen there. They're running around fighting amongst each other over petty stuff: drugs, money, prostitution, who has the more legit car. And in the end, they're just spending money to fight each other instead of building themselves up in many cases.
Who is it that's dying out here on these streets every night? Y'all.
Who is it that's dying out here on these streets every night? Y'all. And that's the whole thing about dog culture. Fellow humans are dying. Fellow humans are giving up their little children. Fellow humans are giving up their rights just to go to a restaurant and not have a dog there. To not go to a church or the hospital and not have other people's dogs running all around. You give up your rights as a human. You're the ones dying out there in the streets just so you can say, well, look at me, I have a bunch of dogs.
Young brothers like yourselves.
What am I supposed to do? Fool roll up, try to smoke me? I'll shoot the motherfucker if he don't kill me first.
Did you hear what he said? If a fool rolls up and tries to smoke me, I'm going to kill him before he kills me. That's like with dog culture. If my neighbor's dog is barking, I'm going to tell him. But then the neighbor will say, hey, you're a freaking dog hater. I'm going to put your name up on Facebook. And people will literally call for the death of another human if they don't treat a dog the way that they think they're supposed to be treated. And this little example about if a fool rolls up on me, I'm going to do this and do that. That happens with dog disputes all the time.
You're doing exactly what they want you to do. You have to think, young brother.
Yep, you're doing exactly what they want you to do. They want you to get a bunch of dogs and think that you're the best person in the world, and then be in constant conflict with your own human emotions, your own human purpose, and be in constant conflict with your own fellow humans.
About your future. Huh?
Yep, so that's right. You got to think about your future. So there it is. You got to think, young brother. Dog culture also preys on older people. Senior citizens have more deaths and more serious attacks. So that's another sad thing about dog culture. It's taking away the wise older people in our society. And it's leaving the young guy like this right here, the guy that is probably a good guy but is full of this brainwashed dog culture, thinking that he needs to run around and, showcase his dog wherever he goes. Meanwhile, his life really isn't going anywhere. So that has been our look at Boyz N The Hood. Hope you guys like it. See you in the next one.